What I'm going to be bringing to the table for my story and this interview today is my first scientific theory. It's in my book called Unity Theory. That's the short title. The long title is The Universal Natural Intelligence Theory of Energetics. And so, touching on the idea of quantum, a lot of people use that word in our modern society and they don't typically know what it really means. And what quantum means from a definitive perspective is simply things at the smallest level. But what we learn in this new science that's coming up, that's not just not completely monopolized by my book, but is in quantum field theory, which is, to be clear, a very separate thing from unity theory. It's in quantum field theory. Bruce Lipton's talking about it. Greg Braden's talking about it. And what this new science explains is that we live in a holodynamic universe, meaning that everything down to the quanta, the smallest level, is completely interconnected with everything and everyone else.
Well, good afternoon, folks. We got Isaac Mars in house. Isaac is basically a theoretical physicist, right? Is that right? And a
Yes.
spiritual guide. But before we get going, folks, don't forget right down below, just hit the pause button, go to Rumble, and we're about to break 12,000 subs on Rumble, which is a pretty cool achievement. Don't forget to also share us on your social media. We got great merchandise. Okay, if you want to wake people up about Jasara and Asara and the fact that they're potentially worth hundreds of millions of dollars, because that's what they did. They basically sold us out to your parents. They rented out. They rented your body out to the corporations, and they've been trading you forever. This is what we teach. We teach QFS1776.com, which is the holy grail of what's coming, the quantum financial. If you want to learn and you know nothing about nothing, this is basic arithmetic, basic, elementary. It's very, very chronological order that the average person can go through the entire website and understand what it is that's coming and how to charter these waters. Isaac, welcome to the show, brother. What do you want to talk about? I believe personally that we need to have a quantum awakening before we have the quantum system, the financial system, or the quantum healing beds, or the quantum whatever, because people have to, snap out of their media-induced comas, as I like to say, so that they can understand what really is real and what is really BS. So welcome to the show, brother.
Well, absolutely. Thank you, Mel, for having me here. And I do agree with that. And to begin, again, I'm just a theoretical physicist and a spiritual guide. A little bit about me. I was in the military for almost 7 years, so I have a background in biology as a medic. And I have no formal university training. Everything I've done, I'm self-taught. But I've come to the realization that I don't need a piece of paper to give me the permission to be who I am. So, what I'm going to be bringing to the table for my story and this interview today is my first scientific theory. It's in my book called Unity Theory. That's the short title. The long title is The Universal Natural Intelligence Theory of Energetics. And so, touching on the idea of quantum, a lot of people use that word in our modern society and they don't typically know what it really means. And what quantum means from a definitive perspective is simply things at the smallest level. But what we learn in this new science that's coming up, that's not just not completely monopolized by my book, but is in quantum field theory, which is, to be clear, a very separate thing from unity theory. It's in quantum field theory. Bruce Lipton's talking about it. Greg Braden's talking about it. And what this new science explains is that we live in a holodynamic universe, meaning that everything down to the quanta, the smallest level, is completely interconnected with everything and everyone else. So what this essentially means in layman's terms for someone who's just stumbling across this information is that we are all the entire universe experiencing itself through the phenomenon of consciousness. And what this essentially means is that consciousness itself is the base of all physics. It's the base of reality. It's the base of our experience and the experiences that we go through in our individual lives. And so, what unity theory does for people is it explains how reality works at a fundamental level. And by doing so, we can tap into, like, as you were saying, that quantum way of living. knowing that if I am hurting myself, if I have this vicious internal dialogue where I'm treating myself poorly, then that energy is being reflected out to everything and everyone else, adding to and feeding the reality that we're all experiencing at the collective level. So we have been taught institutionally at every single level of society to hate each other, to divide and separate from each other, to be untrusting and to distance ourselves. But the thing is, every time we choose to do that, we're choosing something that's low vibrational. And so we're actually feeding the very reality that 95%, 99% of us don't want to support, a reality that's based on the greatest cause of all suffering in this planet, which is the illusion of separation. That illusion and feeding into it is exactly what causes all war, all abuse, all murder, everything. And the only way that we can get through that is by turning within ourselves, which is what we hear in most of spirituality and in Eastern philosophy. But the thing is, when someone says turn within, most of us in this world are like, what the heck does that mean?
Yeah.
But we really don't know where to go with that. So what unity theory does is it explains it and it lays out a simple roadmap for people to be like, oh, so this is what that means to give myself the unconditional love that I'm seeking from the external, because that unconditional love can be measured and quantified scientifically as a high vibration. And so there's just in this one book, there are so many scientific concepts and philosophical perspectives that are explored. You know, free will as being a paradox that exists and does not exist depending on how you view it. It goes into how dark matter, dark energy, and gravity are all part of the same process, which I call universal spatial pressurization. Now, I am the first person to ever propose that, and nobody else in human history has been able to even claim that they've solved dark matter, dark energy, and gravity, let alone figure out what each thing is individually. But I've done all of that and made it in such a way that I can even explain it to a small child. And as Albert Einstein said, if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't really understand it. So that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm bringing to the table. Um, I go into time as well. That's one thing I want to add before we move on. But time can only exist if there are infinite moments and infinite timelines through which our consciousness shifts through. Now, this is something that I can explain if you think that your viewers will like that. But
Absolutely.
what that means essentially is that if you can imagine something, not only can it exist, it already does within the infinite moments of reality, because that's the only way, logically speaking, through the explanation in my book, that we could possibly even have this experience as a story, as something that starts with the beginning and has an ending. And so, with that knowledge, that disqualifies everything that is fiction. That means there is no fiction. That everything that mainstream society is like, oh, you know, like reptilians and this thing and that thing, that's just, there's no way that's real. That's just them lying to themselves because they believed in the illusion. So, I mean, we got a lot to unpack there, Mel. So, what do
There's
you
a
think so
no
far?
question. And how is your system? Is your system at all connected to the quantum computer systems that are one in Reno, Spain, and what you may call it over in Dubai? Are you familiar with the quantum computer systems?
Yes, I am familiar with the quantum computer systems. And so that's a trick question because, yes, everything's interconnected, but no, at the human level, my system or my theory is not connected to those systems.
Okay, gotcha. And you are familiar with Starlink, Jasara, Nasara, and are you a starseed?
So yes, I am a star seed. I have many parallel incarnations in many different star nations, but the ones that I identify with the most are Sirian, Lyran, and Pleiadian. And I hail from Sirius A, is where my soul expression originated, I would say. And it gets a little complicated because time is not linear, as we've been taught that it is here in the human world, let's call it. Um, And yes, I have learned a lot about Nasara Jasara. Mainly, I know more about this history actually than what the plans are for it, which is interesting because this has been scheduled to roll out ever since I believe JFK,
Mhm.
and it was part of his assassination. And then I recently learned with that it was also supposed to come out on, guess what, September 11th in 2001.
Right.
And so that's a big reason for everything that happened on that date.
Exactly.
I can actually explore and quantify how they were able to pull that off because um, there's so much in Unity theory that explains that essentially, as hard as it may be for the ego mind to swallow, there are no victims. Because if we are holodynamic in the sense that we are the reality itself that we're experiencing, then from a philosophical perspective, you could say that we're all God, and God can't do something to God unless God agrees with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So a lot of people would be like, well, how did we agree to 9/11 or something like that? And that's something that I learned quite clearly how they were able to get us to use our consciousness to help manifest that situation. I forget the third question though that you asked.
About the Starlink.
Starlink. Starlink is a very interesting topic because one thing that is important to me is that we don't know exactly what the intentions are for these types of systems, specifically Starlink, until they're actually happening. We can speculate, we can uh, you know try and prophesy what will happen, but at the end of the day, we won't know until we're in that moment to experience it. But from my perspective, um, the individual putting forth that system, Elon himself, my take on him, and it may not resonate with everyone, is that he is a powerful soul that incarnated into a very dark family. And right now, in this moment, he's lost in the sauce. I think that he really does, in his heart, want to do what he thinks is best for the world, but he's been completely misinformed. He doesn't know how physics work fundamentally. And if he does, then that means there are only two options here. He's either doing all this knowingly, or he just doesn't get it. He's misinformed. He's ignorant of what's happening, and he's potentially being a leader for a lot of bad things to happen. But I'm not here for fear mongering or to scare anybody because I know that that's not going to help us. What I'm saying though is that there are some clear things that they're doing that I'm going to call bogus on. And for example, I have seen two streams of white or spherical ships that are slowly flying through the sky across the sky. First one was in Sedona last year, I think, and then this year was Mount Shasta, which I just got back from about 3 weeks ago, and they're claiming on the internet that it's Starlink. Well, why don't we have any pictures or videos explaining how Starlink works and how their satellites are supposed to look? To me, that's just a convenient way to uh, carefully move certain amounts of UFOs or ships that the government has, let's say, repurposed to another part of the planet, without violating anything with what I would call the alliance, which is within our orbit and just beyond our orbit, holding space for us as we're doing this shadow work on the collective level. And while they can still maintain the illusion for all of those that are still asleep in the illusion of Maya in the Matrix, let's say. So I do know that they're using the idea of Starlink to get away with certain things. Again, those things specifically, we can only speculate right now. But the more people that wake up, the more people that I interact with, that I experience these things with, they're like, there's no way that that's Starlink. So
Right.
that's an interesting thing to talk about. And in regard to what I've explained in my presentation, specifically at the summer conference this year in Mount Shasta, I talked about how, since everything is energy, frequency, and vibration, if an individual or an organization or a group of beings conspiring together, reminding the viewers that conspiracy theorist is just a disempowering term. Either there's a conspiracy or there isn't. And it's pretty clear that there's a conspiracy at the global level that's been going on for not just recently, but for thousands of years. And so these conspirators, um, man, where was I going with that? I guess I'm not supposed to talk about that because I totally
Yeah,
totally left my
it's
mind. But
fine.
what I'm saying is that they are clearly using the universal laws. They're using spirituality itself, this hidden knowledge that they've kept suppressed for so long, to continue to do what they want to do. But the thing is, the second that we become aware of what that is, we pull the rug out from under them. And that is what they're terrified of. That's why we're seeing things get worse and worse before they get better. Because what they're doing is they're squeezing and they're squeezing. And every time they squeeze, more people wake up. So then when more people wake up, they squeeze harder. And then more people wake up. And then it's just an inevitability. I mean, we keep
Yeah,
hearing it. The light has won. We're just going through the steps and remembering how we got there.
yeah. By any chance, you never hung out with my dad, have you?
Who's your father?
Well, my father used to own pizza shops, and he always used to, I think he's probably coined the phrase lost in the sauce because he
Uh,
used to make a lot of sauce when you're in the pizzeria industry. So he used to say that back in the 70s, lost in the sauce. I remember him
oh
saying
yeah,
that all the time. Oh, he's lost in the sauce. Forget about it. You know,
right.
UFOs, we got to start calling them by its proper name. They're IFOs.
Okay,
They're identified. They've been identified
fair
a
enough.
long, long, long time ago.
Fair enough.
Have you had any visitations or any galactic interference, et cetera, at all that you can
Abs-
remember?
Absolutely. So I was actually just talking about this yesterday, so it's fresh in my mind. Last year, I had my first contact experience. I went through a lot of really intense things regarding my spiritual awakening, which was basically unity theory in a nutshell. I woke up logically. I realized how everything worked. And then I was like, okay, so now all this makes sense. Now it really is quantifiable that there are these beings that have been here for a long time that are attempting their best to try and control humanity. And so that's what led to me going through a lot of crazy experiences. For example, I attempted to get in contact with Elon, and some people at Tesla ended up in jail. And that started my ET experience because on the wall of my jail cell was a bunch of random letters, and I had nothing better to do than sit there and stare at a wall. So I rearranged the letters, and it ended up spelling, the first thing I rearranged them to was regain ET team. And I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting because I'm just starting to stumble across this extraterrestrial information and learn more about IFOs. And later that year in August, early August, there's this YouTuber, Nathan Lindsay, Vibes in Frequencies. So that's with an N instead of and. Nathan and I became good friends last year, and we ended up going up on top of Mount Shasta, about two-thirds up the mountain, and we camped out up there just with sleeping bags. And at night, around 9:30 or 10 o'clock, Nathan points up at a star and he says, "That's a UFO." And I said, "I don't know, man. I don't think that's a UFO. It looks like a star to me." And my ego mind was twisting and trying to sabotage and say, "You're not seeing anything. Your eyes are moving. Don't look at that." It was all the programming from mainstream society. And then Nathan says, "No, it's definitely moving." And so I said, "Well, all right, I'm just going to trust him. I believe in him." And lo and behold, that star started moving around. And then we had just watched the Stephen Greer documentary. I don't know if you've seen it, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. It's actually a pretty empowering production, I think. But we had just seen that, and they communicated verbally and telepathically with the ships. And so I told Nathan, ask it to do something. And so he says out loud, make a circle if you're a UFO. And lo and behold, that thing that looks like a star makes a circle. And we kept interacting with it. And before we knew it, all these other ships started appearing. Like we could visually see them shifting in, like they were half teleporting, half moving extremely fast, maybe even faster than the speed of light. Um, and then as more and more ships started to interact with us, we would see these equilateral triangle formations, these lines of ships in a row. It got to the point where we couldn't tell what were stars and what were ships. And that's when Nathan asked me, "Who do you think these beings are?" And I said, "Well, I think it might be the Galactic Federation." And then all the ships would brighten up and then dim back down as if to say, yes, that's correct. And then he asked me, what kind of beings do you think are up there? What star nations? And I said, I think all of them are. I think our whole family's here. And when I said our whole family's here, they all lit up again and then dim back down. And then we interacted with them for a few hours. This was probably 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning at that point, and they were literally changing the colors of their ships, making conga lines, being real playful and colorful and just having a good time with us. And then all of a sudden we see this bigger ship kind of phase into this dimension. And these four little bright red ships that to me kind of look like X-wings from Star Wars came out of the ship on in all four directions. And they shot out across the sky faster than the speed of light. Legitimately, they made lines of light like in the movie Tron Legacy. I don't know if you've ever seen that,
That one I
but
have.
yeah, and so that's something that Dr. Stephen Greer actually uh, explained in his documentary. He said that these beings are capable of moving at the speed of thought.
Mhm.
And so that coincides with what I explain in unity theory, because if we are one with the reality around us, then there is no limit to what we can do.
Right.
And and so that was a profound experience. I mean, when those red ships shot across the sky, Nathan and I felt this wave of energy come over us and we like lifted off the ground almost.
Mhm.
And that was my main initial contact experience. And since then, I've had other experiences, guided shamanic journeys, entering a mind state, activating DMT,
Mhm.
and it was just basically like all these old family members. I explain it in such a way, it's kind of strange, but it was like I was in a old folks home or something, and I was walking down the hall in my consciousness, and all these doors were opening up, and these old family members that were not human by any means were just showing their faces and kind of saying, "Hey, you're doing it. We're proud of you," and then going back. I
Was this
got a
while you were
telepathic.
under a DMT? Was this while you were under the influence of DMT?
Yes.
What does DMT
And
stand for? Tell our audience, please.
DMT is dimethyltryptamine. It is the molecule that exists within nearly all living beings. And specifically, it can be activated within our lungs, it can be activated within our eyeballs, but the majority of our DMT is within our pineal gland, which some scientists call the seat of the soul. Um, it's essentially the third eye, but so under that experience, I got a telepathic download that we have ships. All of us have ships, starseeds, light workers, and even those that are just here on their own different journey. We all have a ship dedicated with our family from other dimensions to watch us and hold space for us. And the thing is, they can protect us. This is why we have the age-old saying, "Oh, I'm protected by guardian angels," because we are. At all times, that's what I got in the telepathic download. They can help us behind the scenes, which is why I have never gotten hacked. I'll never get hacked by anyone or anything within the dark agenda. They can't do it because I'm in absolute faith that I'm protected. Now, one way that they can end up influencing our reality is if we choose fear. Because what we're doing when we choose fear is we're giving permission to have that experience.
Mhm.
And so that was something that was really profound in the shamanic journey. And then uh, one time when I was really sick up on the mountain in a place called Sand Flat at in Mount Shasta, I could see over the edge of the mountain where I was parked out camping that night in my car, and I went to sleep and I woke up, but I was in a dream, and in that dream, I could see a cloaked ship hovering by the side of the mountain. You could see the light shimmering as it hit the cloaking device or whatever you want to call it. And I saw these four cloaked individuals walking up to me, and I had intuitively asked the Arcturians that night for some healing because I was feeling under the weather. And so these four beings uncloaked as they came close to me, and I held out my hand and I said, "I'm not afraid." And they appeared to me in the form of uh, like four of the same human, basically. So they looked like something out of Star Trek. They were wearing this burgundy one-piece suit with a symbol on it. I can't really remember the symbol that I saw, but I knew there was a symbol. And one of them grabbed my hand and they all smiled, and then I woke up. And I've shared that story a few times, and people have said, "Oh yeah, that's you weren't sleeping. That was an actual experience. They
Yeah,
just made it so that it was more palatable for my consciousness."
exactly. Now, did you say you were in jail? Did I hear you correctly? Did you go to jail or something?
Yeah, I went to jail when, man, when was that? Early, early 2021, because after the formulation of the universal natural intelligence theory of energetics, I knew that the main person that I could influence this world and this reality the most would be Elon Musk. So I packed up everything and I hit the road and I drove about 1,000 miles to Tesla Giga Texas, knowing that he had a residence in the area and that would be the most likely place that I could get in contact with him. I had tried every email, tried every phone number, nothing was going through. I was getting no responses. And so I went all the way there. And that was quite an interesting experience because that was right after my awakening. And I had realized that, again, in order for time to make sense and to all happen at once, as mainstream science has proposed, that's what Albert Einstein explained. Since all of time happens at once, there are infinite moments, meaning what we choose, what we experience is either low vibration or high vibration. And courage is one step up from fear. And so, no matter where my intuition led me, even if it was straight into the lion's den, I followed it. And so, I ended up at the gate to Tesla Giga Texas in Austin. And explained to the security guards, and I worked in security for a year on the civilian side of my life, and so I know how security typically goes. And I explained the situation to the security guards. I said, I have information for Elon Musk. I don't need to talk to him, although that would be the best. Um, I'm open to talking to just a supervisor or something within the organization. And they seemed all fine, just typical security guards. And then they said, "Okay, well, what's your name?" And I told them, "I'm Isaac Mars." And immediately they back up and their demeanor changes and they say, "You have to leave right now." And I was like, "What?" Like, I just got here after 1,000 miles of driving. I'm not going to leave. Please set me up with somebody. And they're like, "No, you have to leave right now." And again, I worked in security. I know that that's not typical protocol. You would give them a phone number of someone else they can contact. Even if I mean, it just makes no sense. Even if there was some sort of issue and they were told, you know, don't talk to this person, you would give them a phone number and then that person would just leave because they'd be like, "Okay, well, I'll go try the phone number." But they just wouldn't. It's like they
So
immediately
they
went
put
into
you in
fear
jail
mode.
for that?
Yeah, because I
So you
decided
wanted
that
to go meet you wanted to go meet Elon Musk and you met their security team. They said you must leave now as soon as they found out what your name is. You didn't leave. They called cops and you went to jail. How long you in
yes.
jail for?
Uh, so that's an interesting story. And the short version is 10 days. And during that experience, one of the only books I had in there was a Bible. And I had opened up the Bible to a random page, put my finger down basically on a passage and read it. And it was Revelations 2:10. Uh, it says, "Behold, do not fear, for you will be tested, and the devil will throw you into prison for 10 days." And on the 10th day, I was released without explanation. But a lot of crazy stuff happened in there after talking about my experience with my physician assistant friend. He flat out told me that they attempted to kill me in there. They gave me a tuberculosis test, and I was trained as a medic, so when I was trained, we were told tuberculosis is one of the most infectious, contagious diseases known to mankind. So if someone has it, you want to find out as soon as possible. I was trained that you check the tuberculosis test, which is a shot underneath the skin, within 15 to 30 minutes. Well, they have changed it in the entire mainstream medical field since I've learned it. And now they claim it's 48 to 72 hours. Well, how the heck does that make sense if someone is contagious with a super infectious disease that doesn't? And so they gave me that test, and the nurse never even came back within the 72 hours to check on it. And after that happened, I could feel my abdominal aorta, which is one of the main blood vessels in my abdomen. It felt like it was exploding. Basically, I was going to have a triple A, which is essentially a heart attack within the abdomen.
Interesting.
And while I was in there, the food was so poisonous that I decided to start fasting, and I was only drinking water. And as I was going through this, I would just kept saying to myself, I was pretty terrified, but I kept saying, faith unto death, faith unto death. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to make it through this. And then suddenly I felt this huge wave of healing energy come over me. And I felt my abdomen start to feel better. And so it was just a really profound experience. A physician basically interrogated me, not about my wellness, but about my theory and my science. So everything in there was extremely validating in as far as knowing what I'm going through, what I'm here to bring to the world, and knowing that the dark agenda is afraid of it. I mean, if they're going to try and dose me with something, then they clearly don't want me to share this with people. And ever since then, I realized that even though I was following my intuition and my excitement within my heart, trying to do what was right, I wasn't completely choosing unconditional love in the highest vibrational decisions. And so from that point forward, I started, and I've gone from basically being a nobody in society to talking at conferences and being an author and being invited to places to give speeches. So my entire life has turned around just because of the information that I share within my book. I'm applying it to my own life, I'm living it. And since that's happening, the universe is reflecting that back to me, opening every single door. All I have to do is just walk through it.
Gotcha. And is there a website where people can follow you, Isaac?
Yeah. So my primary website is thecrimsoneagle.com. People can find me at Instagram at the Crimson Eagle. And what I do as a theoretical physicist and a spiritual guide is I mainly am looking to work with other scientists that are willing to bring this to the mainstream, because this is stuff that the people deserve to know. They think that they're victims of the reality around them, but that's the only thing that's keeping them locked in that cycle. So I'm looking for other scientists to collaborate with, and I also give spiritual guidance. My book is available on my website for free or love donation because, again, this information needs to get out to the public. And my spiritual guidance, I do not charge for. I mean, I accept love donations because we all need to make it by, get by in this world. But the people deserve love. And that's
Yeah.
how I feel about myself. So if I'm going to feel that way about myself, if I'm really going to walk the walk, then I should feel that way about everybody else too.
Yeah. If you do the right thing and you live by, certain rules, do unto others as you want them to do unto you, etc. People, I know all these people that are all Bible thumpers and they all, I know a few people that when they close the Bible, they're not so spiritual, they're not so holy, they're assholes, actually. I know a few people like that. Okay. And the reality is they think because they read the Bible and because they go to church on Sunday, and they worship that they got a free ticket to go to heaven. That's the biggest bullshit story anybody could ever
Mhm.
buy into. Would you agree with that or disagree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I see where they're coming from. And so that to me is part of unconditional love, is to accept people where they're at. But
Mhm.
I don't agree with what they're doing, and I don't support it. Because at the end of the day, what they're essentially doing is lying to themselves. And when they're
Right.
faced with information and facts like what we are learning in the new science of spirituality, what they say is that, oh, you're liars, that's not how it works, this is all bullshit. Well, that's projection. What they're doing is projecting onto star seeds, light workers that are waking up, spiritualists that are just shining their light, and they're replaying that Agent Smith programming from the Matrix over and over again. And then they wonder why God is absent in their life, why they're struggling, why they're actually depressed, and they want to blame everybody else, but
Bingo.
they're ignoring the fact that the blame and that whole illusion of separation is exactly what's causing it in the first place.
Yeah. And would you agree with the fact that not all extraterrestrials are fallen angels?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that the basic principle is that there are no factions, there are no organizations, there are um, no peoples or species where everything is all bad and all good. So if you look at like something as even drastic as let's say the dark agenda itself, there are white hats in the dark agenda playing the role of the dark agenda so that they can be on our side. So that's still an example, an extreme example of something that's so dark, but there's still good people within it. So the idea that ETs are these demons coming down to try and enslave us. I mean, I tell you what, they have the technology to do whatever the heck they want. If they wanted to, they would be doing that. They'd be causing chaos. But the thing is, the dark ones, the ones that want to control, are already here. They've been here for thousands of years. In fact, the Sumerian tablets and all of history shows that there was a genetic alteration in the Homo erectus or one of the other Homo families that led into a sudden increase of capabilities, mentally speaking, that is Homo sapiens, which is what we are right now. And so the next thing on the agenda, on the, let's say, the divine plan, not the agenda, is Homo spiritus. So that's us moving to the next stage of evolution. And what the way that we do that is through consciousness. It's not technology. Technology is an imitation of what we are already capable of. And so if we have something that's disempowering in our life, this is where we're giving our power away through our consciousness. If we have something that's codependent, this is another way we're giving our power away. And then something that's just plain disempowering. If we can stay conscious of these three aspects of our life where we're giving our power away, that's where we can redirect it inward, use that energy to increase the rate of our manifestations, lift the whole collective consciousness of reality, and literally be in heaven at all times. For those of us that are really doing the work, we're already there. We're in heaven right now.
Well, we're going to
Heaven
create
is
heaven right here on earth with Jasara and Nasara. I believe that wholeheartedly. I just know too
absolutely,
much not to
absolutely.
believe that. Yeah.
But what I'm saying, Mel, is to get there, to anchor that moment in where we have fully created heaven on earth. It's not to see it to believe it, it's to believe it and then see it. And so by holding that vibration within ourselves, we can create the reality in which that is exactly what happens. And I agree with you. I see that right on the horizon. There's going to be some interesting stuff that happens in terms of where the dark agenda wants to take things. And all of it has to do with free will because it's a holodynamic universe, meaning God can't force God to do anything that God doesn't want to do. And but what we're starting to learn, and this is kind of a left turn conversationally, but it's all still important, is we're starting to learn exactly how the dark agenda has tricked us into disempowering ourselves in the past. And lately, on my end, I've been learning about David Wynn Miller. Do you know who that is?
I've heard the name, but I haven't followed him.
So David Wynn Miller did something that was absolutely profound and was covered up by every single government and every single nation on the planet. And what he did is he cracked the code of language. And what I mean by that is he changed language from being something that we interpret into being a quantifiable mathematical code.
Does he work with this guy, Bill Gould or something? What's his name?
Russell Gold. Yeah.
Yes, Russell, Bill Gould or whatever.
Yeah.
Supposedly, the gentleman you just mentioned passed away, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And
Supposedly.
supposedly. Now, this guy, Russell Gould, claims that it's all his doing. And from what I understand, there's a few people out there saying, no, it was the other guy that you just mentioned. And this guy, because this guy's dead, this guy can't defend himself, obviously.
Right.
Okay. So this guy can't make an argument, but this guy claims that it's all him. This Russell Gould, some people are calling him a phony, whatever. I don't know. The only thing I do know is that we teach that inside our course. There's a 9-hour video of the gentleman you just mentioned. I watched maybe 2 hours of it because I'm a busy guy. Okay, we're now breaking 100,000 people following us on all platforms. But I've watched enough of the other guy Gould to know that we've been bamboozled with the linguistics by design, intentionally, etc. So yeah, we teach all that stuff. David Straight, we got David Straight inside our QFS1776.com. We got Jasara Nasara, we got the Lobster, we got XRP, we got XLM, we got everything. We got from A to Z on what's coming. Yeah.
And the most important thing, though, I feel right now is for people to become aware of the straw man. Do you know what the straw man is?
I've heard of that too. Tell us.
So the straw man is the way that we explain it here in America. It is our birth certificate and social security card.
Yes.
And what it is here is Isaac Andrew, Isaac dash Andrew, Mars. This is the living man. That's how we say it in quantum syntax and David Windmiller's technology. Here is a fiction. Here is my birth certificate and my social security card. This is the straw man. But everybody in our reality, well, not everybody, but most of the people in mainstream society, they identify with the straw man. They put the straw man hat on and they go around paying the straw man's taxes. They listen to the rules that the straw man has agreed to. And the reason that they do that is because they have no awareness, no consciousness on what's going on. And the truth is, there is this act that was established by the Pope in 1666 called the Cesta KV Act.
I've heard of that.
CESTUI QUEVIE Act. And so the birth certificate, when we sign that contract, because everything is contract, because God can't force God to do anything God doesn't want to do, that contract that our parents sign says, according to the Cesta KV Act, that we are dead and lost at sea. And this all caps name, why is it in all caps? If you go to any gravestone, any graveyard, you'll see that their names are written in all caps. Yeah. So that's to say that you are dead. And that's how a corporation, root word corpse, can have power over a living entity, because the living entity has been officially declared on paper as a dead entity. And so the straw man is the one they're contracting with. But until we go, in the Cesta KV Act, what it says is unless you have witnesses and verify that you are a living being, then you are adhering to the Cesta KV Act and you cannot make contracts and you are a slave. That's essentially what it says.
Yeah.
And so through David Windmiller's quantum syntax language technology, he has changed this language, English, which is essentially Babel from the Bible, the Tower of Babel. We can't understand each other. That's what we've all been speaking. We've been speaking Babel. And so all these words have double meanings and can be misinterpreted. And so they're essentially telling the truth to our subconscious mind. That's why most of us don't get an intuitive hit. We're like, oh, they're lying to us, because they're technically not. They're using Babel to say nothing. And then we're assuming that we're supposed to pay taxes. We're assuming we're supposed to comply. And so we just consent and give our power away. But the second that David Windmiller was able to break the language code and make the quantum syntax language, which can be read frontwards and backwards the same way, it essentially became the definition between the two is that Babel is like saying 3 plus 4 equals 9. That doesn't make any sense. But neither party would be right if, one says 9 and one says 10. And so it's all about interpretation. Using quantum syntax, it's 3 plus 3 equals 6. Nobody can argue it. That no judge in all of the entire planet can argue against that. And so by using that to verify that we are living beings using a document called a live life claim, then we fulfill the Sesta KV Act. We claim that we are a living being with witnesses. Therefore, we are no longer a part of the Sesta KV Trust. We have revoked our consent. Anything that they do or say against us is trespassing against the living, which is extremely it's not good for their karma. Let's say that. And
Right.
so I just was arrested again for not giving a police officer my registration and my license when he asked for it. And I had all the documentation, all the paperwork. They unlawfully broke into my automobile, threw me to the ground, damaged me, my physical vessel, and they unlawfully imprisoned me and kidnapped me. So I just charged 4 individuals for $5 million in change, because if they don't adhere to that contract from a living man, what they're saying overtly is that they would rather be charged under the law that's has to do with false conveyance of language. So false conveyance of language, which I can prove without a doubt that 3 plus 3 equals 6 with David Wynn-Miller's technology, I can prove that they used false conveyance of language in every single thing they did at every level, meaning that they owe a minimum of $25 million each and 30 years in prison. And so when a judge had me on a digital call trying to determine something, I think it was my arraignment, I called her out for committing fraud, and I called her out for lying to everybody on the call, including myself. And I had her visibly shaking because she knew exactly what she was doing, because every single judge is trained on quantum syntax. They are terrified of it because the second that we all start using this, the second that we all get out of the Sesta KV trust, then they have no power over us, and we can essentially arrest them and jail them for the crimes that they've committed against humanity. And so
Well,
that's something that I'm doing here in Sedona, is bringing awareness to that and living that as well.
great. Do you teach this in your book, if you don't mind me asking? The book that you
This
give
is
away for free or that people can donate to get your book, etc.
Yeah, so that in Unity theory, this is more about the fundamental ways that reality itself works. But this is something that I'm getting more and more passionate about, because my own friends here are being transgressed against. They're living beings, and they're trying to be contracted with against their will by these corporate policy officers and these judges that are completely corrupt. And so since they know what they're doing, then I feel more and more passionate about stepping into this role. And I do foresee myself giving free courses on this to raise awareness, because the more people become living again in the Matrix's system, the less they have power of, the bigger the tsunami wave of energy becomes, the faster we get to manifesting heaven on earth. And that's what I'm here about. In fact, I just wanted to give a shout out to Michael Della Roca. Is that how you say his name? I saw him on your show recently, and if it weren't for everything he shared, I would have probably shared 90% of what he shared with you today. But I'm
Great.
very thankful for him, and I recommend that people watch those
Yeah,
videos that he
he's
put out.
amazing. He's truly
He
amazing.
is.
Yeah.
He is, and
Yeah.
I really couldn't have anything to offer in terms of what he was sharing. He was going
Well,
down to the nitty gritty.
yeah, Michael
So
Della
I'm
Rocca will be back on the show for sure. Maybe
awesome.
more than like, 5, 6 more times. You have like 130 IQ on the stuff, and it comes easy because you've immersed yourself. Your pineal gland is able to receive and absorb, etc., and you're sort of rolling it off your tongue like it's second nature. But the average person out there, let's face it, Isaac, with 99 IQ is going to have an issue with what you are able to achieve. So that's why we're all waiting for Jasara Nasara so that we can make
Right.
it simple, stupid, and everybody's, a free man, free woman, etc. But,
Hmm.
I know all about this stuff and I've been following it for a long, long time. Um, Getting back to the extraterrestrials, I'm going to ask you a question. Whether you,
All right.
I'm not sure whether you know or didn't know, but did you know that you can actually summons the craft with lasers, powerful lasers?
I didn't know that you could do it with lasers, but I have tried Dr. Greer's CE5 technique, and I have been successful with that.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so uh, Stephen Greer created this Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind contact, let's call it protocol. And
Yes.
so in this protocol, what you do essentially is you get into a deep meditative state and you get into your heart space specifically because these higher consciousness beings, that's where they operate consistently. Like to them, the illusion of separation and ego, in the sense of being each other's enemies, it's just not a language that they even speak. They live in the heart. And so you get into a deep meditative state for, however long it feels right to you. For me, it's typically 5 to 10 minutes or so. And just really feel your heart. You can even place your hand there if it helps. And put out the intention to connect with one of these beings. And everybody's different. We're all on a completely infinite spectrum of spiritual gifts, psychic access. So for some people, they may get an actual visual that just pops into their head. Oh, there's this ship up over to the left, and then you can connect with it, and then set the intention for more interaction, and then you'll see that ship come down. For me, it was just more simple than that. It's connecting in the heart and just trusting that something or someone, a being, will make some sort of message, some sort of appearance. And I've had a ship phase in right above the tree line near Lake Siskiyou in Mount Shasta, California. A small white orb ship, probably
Mm.
35 to 40 meters from the ground, just appear and then do a quick sweep and then disappear again, just showing, yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
Mhm.
And the thing is, it's easier to do this kind of thing in a secluded area or out in nature because they don't want to impose on anybody's free will if somebody in the area doesn't want to see an ET. So that's
Right,
something to
totally,
keep in mind.
totally. And have you been picked up, or do you remember being picked up, or have you been brought to other planets or other solar systems? Any of that stuff? No.
No, not that I can remember. And so to me, I'm excited for adventures like that because I know that they're going to be a plenty for all of us in the
Right,
new
right.
Earth. But
There's
as
going
of
to be
now, I'm
there's going to be so much, Isaac.
right.
We're going into a new world. XRP, XLM, Spark, Flare token is going to take over the Ethereum.
Right.
XRP 100 trillion%. No, 999 trillion% will take over
Wow.
Bitcoin. There's no question about it. That's the only one
Hmm.
that's got the lawsuit. That's the only one that the guys who are running that show get invited down to Antarctica. You ain't got to be too much of a rocket scientist to figure out
For,
something of major significance is going on. The financial system of the world is being decided for us how it's going to be carved up. That's why all of the nonsense that's going on, the manipulation of the market, et cetera. By the way, you should
mhm,
own XRP because it's definitely the one. And right now it's like
mhm.
37 cents. So I'm telling you, you're going to turn 37 cents into $100,000. The question is, how many XRPs do you want to own? We've been accumulating for a very, very long time. As long as you could buy it, hold it, not even look at it, put it on your hardware wallet, put the hardware wallet somewhere safe, you're okay.
Mhm.
And we teach all of this stuff inside the QFS 1776.com, which everybody needs to immerse themselves into it because it's not like you have a choice. You don't
Right.
have a choice. It's coming, and it's coming fast. I know that it's not
Well,
coming as fast as
if
some
you're
of us
interested in
like.
exploring it, I have a few thoughts about that.
Sure. Your camera froze for some reason.
You there, Mel?
I'm here. Yes, I am.
Hello?
Sorry, guys, we had a little dilemma and with the internet, but we're back in business. So, Isaac, tell us a little bit more about you. Where are you located? What are your visions for the future? Do you think the bad guys are losing? Do you think Jasara Nassara is going to happen? Do you think that the new quantum financial system, which is not going to encompass Ethereum or Bitcoin, or probably thousands of the other ones as well, when it's all said and done, when this smoke clears on this quantum financial system, Isaac, I will tell you emphatically that utility is going to win the day. In other words, the tokens have to be able to solve problems that we had, in the
Absolutely.
previous financial system, and we got to burn down the old system in order to start something new. So we're literally in the middle of burning something down of major significance. And XRP, in our opinion, we got, we don't have 100,000 people following us because of my good looks, even though I'm pretty damn good looking. Okay. The reality is that they're following us because we resonate with what we're talking about. It makes a lot of sense. And we give them the proof, or we have the Quantum Financial Systems Manual, which is QFS1776.com. There are people from all over the world that want to copy our website, which you're more than welcome to. I'm not here to save the world by myself. But do you see this thing dragging on much longer? Do you see Donald Trump coming back into power, et cetera? Where are you at that?
Ooh, man, there's a lot to unpack there, but I'm going to do my best here.
Sure.
So, I'm currently living in Sedona, Arizona, which
Mhm.
is sort of an anomalistic town in this world. The energy here is so high and so magnetized that things tend to happen faster here, which is why I've chosen for it to be my sort of base of operations. I highly recommend anybody that's on the spiritual path or on the awakening path to come check out Sedona, Arizona, and we can get some coffee or something. But so that's where I'm at lately. We're doing a lot of big things in terms of consciousness, holding conferences, doing. I help with Sedona Quantum Consciousness, which is using technology assisted ascension tools. And so there's just so much going on. But in regard to the near linear future, something that I feel called to bring up is the year 2030. So Greg Braden has done some interesting work on this, where he's worked with remote viewers. So remote viewers are capable of tapping into a psychic ability in which they can shift their consciousness out of their body. They can uh, go forwards and backwards in space, and they can also go forwards and backwards in what we call linear time. And so a lot of these remote viewers have gone to 2030 and they freak out because they don't see anything. They just can't get there. And so for me, what that says is that there's nothing to be afraid of, but the change is so profound within the next 8 years that at the collective level, we've agreed to not know what's going to be beyond that year, because it's just going to be so profound. So having that information now could potentially change or alter not even probability, but the timelines. The timelines to get there is the best wording. And
Sure.
so between now and 2030, we're going to see some really profound changes. I know that working with time, like in the sense of saying what year something's going to happen, I know I did that with 2030, but that's because it's been quantified by people that have experienced it. But from my perspective, there are so many ways, there are literally infinite ways for this to all play out, that it's best to just stick with what we think could happen and then let the universe take care of the rest. I'm not going to say what dates I think these things are going to happen, but from my perspective, uh, if Trump was going to come back into office right now, he would have done so already. I feel that strategically, what he's going to do is allow this farce of a presidential office continue until 2024, while he continues to maintain things from behind the scenes. And in 2024, I believe that he will get reelected because of everything that's happened since his election in 2016 to now. It's only woken more people up, and more people that didn't used to trust him, including myself, now do trust him. If anything, not necessarily to be the best president that ever was, but to be the man that will be a wild card, that won't allow these things to continue, that will propose a new way. And so that brings us to the quantum financial system, which I really recommend referring to as either the quantum financial system or digital assets, because everything that we do and say is important. And there's a reason why they call it cryptocurrency and why they want people to call it cryptocurrency, because they want it to die. They don't want it to succeed. It means that
Mic
it
drop.
means, yeah,
Got two mic drops.
thank you. So they don't want it to succeed because with the way that I understand it at the quantum level and the way that it's created, you can't you can't create fraud with it. You can't misuse it. It just works or it doesn't work. And so that's why I think the quantum financial system is the future. However, um, as drastic as what I'm about to share with you is, I do feel like it is the most inevitable clear path forward, and that will allow for everybody's free will to play out. The way that I see this happening is that there is going to be collapse, a collapse of the old ways, because more of us, like you and me, taking back our sovereignty, um, coming out of the Cesta KV trust and starting to use the quantum financial system, using digital assets, fiat money is going to be completely worthless. This will cause a collapse at the global level in which most of most of society that as we know it will not function the way it does. I mean, the energy is gonna fall off, the water's gonna stop running. We're gonna have to actually live through that to come out the other end of this. But what I foresee happening is that big cities that have all these 5G towers and um, all the people that have taken the jab. I mean, one thing I was mentioning earlier is that if you know how to manipulate energy, frequency, and vibration, if you can change someone's DNA with vibration,
Mhm.
then that means you can control the world. You can control the evolution of a species. Um, and what does government mean? Government literally means to govern the the mental, the
Mind,
mind
absolutely.
control.
Yes.
And so these bigger cities, I foresee they are going to. Are you still there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, because our power is acting weird here. Um,
It's the extraterrestrials.
yeah. So they these bigger cities, I see them succeeding, not necessarily collapsing, because what they're going to do is they're going to magnetize in those lower vibrational pockets that they've created out of frequency. They're going to magnetize everyone that's still asleep towards these big cities, and then they're going to wall them off so that they can have what? Open air, massive concentration camps. And everyone that wants to continue to experience suffering, that everybody that wants to continue on in the illusion of separation, that's where they're going to do it. And in
Yeah,
that reality, I foresee things like Cyberpunk 2077 playing out. I don't know
yeah.
if you've heard of that video
I
game.
have. I have.
Yeah, so people removing their arms for cybernetic arms, people becoming cyborgs. That's what I foresee playing out in those large mega cities, or mega concentration camps. And then all of us that have chosen to not be a part of that will be on the outside. We will have assistance from our galactic brothers and sisters, because we will be making contact with them regularly. We will be using the quantum financial system. I mean, I'm feeling vibrations through my body right now. This is truth that I feel that I'm bringing to the table. And but they're going to see us inside of these cities as devils, as demons. Because what are they doing? They're going to be projecting. They're going to be saying, "Oh, you're devils. You're trying to ruin this world." And that's what they're doing. They're trying to ruin the world. They're trying to
Right.
control. They're trying to
Correct.
act in fear. And so that's going to be a very interesting time. And I believe that at this time, Ishmael Perez, I don't know if you've heard of him, he said similar things, that we are going to have beings that have activated their DNA at this time when all of this is unfolding, that will be able to shift their vibration from this octave of frequency into the higher level frequency, into the fifth dimension,
Mhm.
into that heaven on earth that technically right now already exists. And so we will have those pockets, those civilizations, and we're going to be, I mean, for all intents and purposes, even in that reality, we're going to be living pretty free. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
everybody's going to be caring for each other in these civilizations. We're going to have our own gardening. We're going to have our own farms. We're going to be able to interact with animals like we've never been able to before. Telepathic communication will be a norm. Psychic abilities will be a norm. And that's why I foresee walls on these megacities, because they're going to have to do something to try and keep those that still want to be asleep from waking up any further. Um, but yeah, it's the big thing is everybody's going to get exactly what they put out. If people really want to make a difference, then the best thing they can do is look in the mirror. Start with the person in the mirror and start choosing unconditional love within ourselves, first towards every thought that comes through, and then towards everything that we've ever, whatever cycles we're dealing with our life. My mother was abusive, my father wasn't a good guy. Healing all that within ourselves, then we can heal the world around us. And I do believe the quantum financial system is going to take off. It is the next step. But the thing is, Mel, to be honest, we need to be able to stand in our power so we can make sure that that happens. And
Yeah.
that to
Well,
me is taking back our sovereignty and
yeah,
and
it's
really,
going to be a completely different world. I always tell the
yes.
story, and this is also really more for your audience than mine. My audience has got black belt on this stuff. I sound like a broken record because the story is not going to change because there's still, 7 point something billion people that are not here yet. 160 million people are aware of the quantum financial system, digital assets, etc. But one of the main reasons why they don't want Donald Trump back is because he's about to introduce life extension technology, medical beds, Nikola Tesla healing technologies, quantum healing on levels that you can't even fathom, you can't even imagine. Free energy technology, flying machines, all of it,
Mhm.
all of it. And they don't want him back because this messes with every single one of their Ponzi schemes. The
Right.
oil, the petrodollar is done. The lithium battery, it's the biggest whole bullshit story. Mining lithium is 100,000 times more damaging to the earth and to the atmosphere, than burning gasoline and all that kind of stuff. We
Mhm.
know that, but we're graduating out of that. We're graduating out of gasoline. 6, 7 years ago, I wanted a Lamborghini in my garage, and I wanted a Ferrari and a Maserati. I'm so beyond that. I'm done. I don't want to be traveling in a system that is so antiquated where I'm scraping the earth like a turkey. I'm not a turkey. I
Right.
want to fly. I'm an
Yeah.
eagle. Okay.
Yep.
I want to get in a flying machine, and I want to be able to go from Miami to Malaysia in 2.2 minutes.
Hmm.
We're going to be able to do this. This is what the bad guys are trying to stop. Even though
Hmm.
they're wealthy, for example, whether you may or may not know, they're manipulating the market because they don't want guys like me that look and smell and talk and walk like me, who are not as so educated and not so sophisticated, to be a billionaire. Well, tough shit. It's too late for that. We've accumulated quite a lot of this stuff. So we're
Hmm.
going into this new transition, this new world. The new world is going to be a bunch of guys like me and you that are going to be worth a lot of money, but we're going to be worth so much more than the guys before us, because there's only 7,200 multi-billionaires in the entire world, and they're all hiding behind their 501c3, like, the little idiots that they are, with little peckers. Okay. All right. And they're hiding, and they pay nothing into society. They do nothing for humanity. They have yachts, and they have a collection of airplanes and helicopters and all this, three-dimensional stuff that doesn't mean anything. We're going to have stuff that's going to travel a lot faster than helicopters and aircraft, and it's going to do it on 0-point energy technology and with 0.0000 pollution. We're going to be able to travel amongst. We should listen. If they would allow the technology that they have, just hiding in Wright-Patterson in Ohio, and Area 51 S4. And there's another major facility. I can't think of the name off the top of my head. If you guys know, you can write it down in the comments below. It was featured many times with my friend Kerry Cassidy from Project Camelot over in Salt Lake City, in that area in Utah, which is even bigger, much bigger by a factor of 10 than Area 51. The technologies that they have been hiding from us can literally catapult us 1,000 years of where we are right now. But they don't want that. They're manipulating the market, even though they're worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're the most unhappy sons of bitches on planet Earth. They don't want the Billy Bobs and the Jane Does who have maybe not a full set of teeth, and they probably don't look right, and they don't probably smell right, probably don't wear the right kind of treads or whatever, and they live in a log cabin, and they got a few shotguns. They don't want people like me and you to be, well, you're probably you're a little better looking than the average. I got to be honest with you. Okay. What I'm trying to tell you is they don't want ordinary people to get the power. When this is all said and done, when this dust settles, and it will, what's going to end up happening is it's going to create such an abundance of wealth, just to the gold alone, that they were able to confiscate at the Vatican, and the gold that's still underground in the Philippines. They've been stealing the shit for thousands and thousands. We got enough gold and silver and precious metals to make everybody on earth a multi-billionaire, regardless of the fact that you already are, with the information you were talking about earlier, that when you come out of your mother and they put your feet, put some ink on your feet, and they stamp your feet on some paper, and they give you to your parents. They're renting you to your parents. Listen to the wording, okay? They are trading you on the open market like cattle, and you're worth billions with a B. Billions. My friend, I got to apologize to my friend. He said he's 72. He's not 72 years old. He's 61. My friend Logan, who lives like 2 miles from me, he's going to kill me. He said, "Hey, Mel," he goes, "I went to some website. I put in my social security number. I found out that I'm worth $15 billion. This is all real. Now, I don't know that we're going to get that money. I would love to." He said, some guy said to me the other day, this guy, Paul, who wanted to invest through my broker in the UK. I got a broker that if you want to buy large amounts of XRP, you could do that through me. And we've already sold over $30 million worth of XRP in the last 3 months. But the reality is 3.5 months. But the reality is I've probably sold maybe $150 million worth of XRP, because people are buying it other resources out there. I'm not the only resource. And there's lots of small investors that are going to Uphold, which I don't make a dime off of Uphold. And he said, "Mel, what are you going to do with all that money?" I said, "I'm just going to give it away." It's like, if you're worth trillions of dollars, you can't spend trillions of dollars, and that technology is moving so fast that the money's going to disappear, including the XRP and the XLM and the XDC, all of it. It's going to go away because technology is moving so fast. It has to go away. We're going to have to graduate at some point. Yes. Will we have problems still? Probably. But there'll be very different kind of problems than the ones we're having right now. The problems we're having right now is the price we're all paying for not paying attention.
Exactly.
Understand? Because if everybody would have listened to me 31 years ago, when I was beating the drum and I was listening to guys like Alex Jones, who was being put through the ringer right now, I don't know why he doesn't wear a pair of what, because those kids over there in that school, I'm not going to mention the name, okay, you know what I'm talking about, over there in Connecticut,
Yeah.
Okay, some of those kids are still alive.
Hmm.
They're going to the ball game. They're at the basketball game. Okay, they're
Hmm.
alive. I would have instead of wasting my money on that attorney, I would say, listen, I want to spend my money on getting a private investigator and dragging these people into a court of law. I would have grabbed their freaking DNA and I would have proved beyond a shadow of a doubt, say these guys are still alive.
Hmm.
This was a complete hoax, a government hoax. These people have been paid $25 million to keep their mouth shut. Do you understand that?
Yeah, but the important thing that I want to bring to the table, Mel, is that when we start to learn more about quantum syntax and how to use it, they can't even those people that are going after Alex, they can't do anything. All he has to say is everything that you're pushing forward through this lawsuit is based in fraud. Case dismissed.
He doesn't know that.
Right.
You should
That's
reach
why
out to him.
I mean, if you got the contacts, let's connect me with them because I'm all
I do
about it.
have some people that do have contacts with him. I got to go through my Rolodex and find out who. Oh yeah, yeah. What's his name? Zach Voorhees. I
Mhm.
just interviewed Zach a week ago. Zach
Okay.
Voorhees, the biggest whistleblower in the history of Google and YouTube, was on my
Hmm.
show.
All
Zach
right.
knows how to get to him.
All right. So yeah, we're all coming together. I mean, this is a perfect example of our galactic family coming together right here. I don't know. We've been at this for eternity, brother. You know, this is probably not the first time that our souls have talked. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Oh, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's deeply spiritual, even this physical world. And so yeah, it's just so mind-blowing, Mel, because we have all the technology in the public right now to be living in a society where everybody's taken care of, where we're not, ruining the planet. But the thing is, all of the current systems that we have are being misused. But then,
Absolutely.
but then, if we start to use them correctly, think about how much better this planet would be. Then we tap into what you were talking about in bringing all that hidden technology to the public, and then we can go above and beyond. We're just sitting on the precipice, about to jump off to soar like eagles,
We
and it's
should
all
be
coming to a
traveling.
head.
We should be traveling amongst the stars right now.
Exactly.
Right now. I
Hmm.
should be able to walk outside my home and get into my spacecraft and go visit my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, or anybody I want anywhere on the planet. I should be there in minutes. But
Hmm.
we're not because we've bought into the bullshit. We bought into the
Hmm.
minutia. We sent our kids to these concentration camps
Hmm.
to learn a bunch of shit that they're never going to use in the real world because we're burning down the old world. Everything you learned is definitely going to be flushed down the toilet because it's going to be useless.
Hmm.
It's going to be
And
useless.
the important thing is it's either going to get way worse before it gets better, because then people will finally wake up, or it's going to take those of us that are already awake to refine our consciousness, to raise our vibration to the highest extent. And when people say raise our vibration, it's not just some woo woo like, oh, now I'm at a higher vibe and I did nothing. That means going out, doing the actions, being on the ground, boots on the ground, spreading awareness. I'm not saying we have to go out and preach to all these people who don't want to hear us, but as friends and brothers and sisters, be like, this is how it's working. This, for example, I've got four people that owe me $5 million right now because they transgressed against me, a living man, when I wasn't a part of the Cesta KV trust. That money is coming. And this is how we can tap into everything they've stolen from us, from your friend who's worth so much money. They stole that money from him through fraud. That's what they actually literally did. So if that person were to take back their power, and let's say they jaywalked and an officer tried to give them a ticket for jaywalking, then they could sue them for or false conveyance of language
Mm-hmm.
and walk the talk in the courtroom, knowing full well exactly how quantum syntax works. I want that to be clear, that anybody who wants to really earn the money back, to really study this thing for like at least a couple hundred hours, if not more. And
Absolutely. It's all
and they
about
can,
knowledge, right? It's all about
right.
knowledge and passing the knowledge on to others and just keep passing and just keep waking people up and keep beating the drum, keep
Right.
beating the drum. I want everybody. See, people think, oh, Mel, you got this big chair, you got this big ego. Fuck. It's not about the ego. It's not about the chair. It's about waking you guys up. And if I got to go spend $2,000 on a chair to do that, guess what? I'm crazy enough to go do it. You know what I
Well, I
mean?
love that. I love that about you, Mel. Seriously. And that brings us to another interesting topic, is that ego is not the enemy. That the worst thing is the programming. It's the
Right.
fear. And we're all here. It's fun to be Mel. It's fun to be Isaac. You know, these are
Yeah.
the characters we
Go
chose.
get your YouTube channel. Go buy a chair that's bigger than mine. I don't care. You know, come on.
Yeah,
Let's wake up the world, man. We're in
exactly.
this. You know, the option is losing. To me, losing is not an option. If I'm
Right.
gonna die, I'm gonna die on my feet fighting your ass. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is the most exciting time in the history of mankind. I mean, we got front row tickets to the
Yeah,
biggest deals that have ever happened for any of us, and we're living it. Like we are the
absolutely.
main characters all coming together for we're the Avengers, we're the
Bingo.
the Justice League, we're all here.
Yeah. We're the
So it's time
Jedi's.
to
We're the
step
new
in our power.
Jedi's.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely. And it
So
takes a
all
little, you know, listen, I used to suck at this. I still suck at it. I say, I just interrupted him. You know, but you know what? I'm having fun.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
I'm having fun too, and
you
I'm
know,
glad
I
that
used to
I'm
do
here.
this selling pizzas. I talk to people all day long. I've been practicing this shit for 58 years. You
Yeah.
know,
Hmm.
this is the character that came out of the pizza industry. Deal with it.
Well,
You
I'm
know,
sure we definitely knew each other in another life because pizza's been my favorite food ever since I was born.
I
So,
made the best pizza in the world. Let me tell you something. I am from the Syrian Star Council. I did a Akashic
okay.
reading. It was
Hmm.
epic. It was
Hmm.
absolutely epic. I
So
said, you know, I moved here to Costa Rica because why? Because of that thing, right?
hmm.
My wife was from the Philippines. The only way we
Hmm.
could avoid that thing, right,
Hmm.
was to move to Costa Rica. I've been an entrepreneur all my life. I mean, I got into this, you know, Bitcoin thing early on 7 years ago by mistake. We got into mining, whatever. And then my
Hmm.
wife, who's really smart, very smart, especially with computers, she's brilliant, right?
Hmm.
So she said, hey, the one you need to look at is XRP. That's the one. I said, but honey, I said, that's the one. That's the banker's coin. Because I was listening to all the Bitcoin Nancy's
Right.
telling me this shit, right? So long story short, she convinced me that I should, you know, get into, and we did. We started buying a little bit, little bit, little bit. We've accumulated, and now we're at the precipice. You know, I'm trying to wake up as many people. I want nothing more. As crazy as this may sound, I know that I've jumped around a lot of different stories, whatever. Deal with it. But the reality is, I'm consumed with making as many people that come across me a multi-billionaire. I don't know why.
Mhm.
I'm just crazy like that, right?
I
Because,
don't think that's crazy at all.
but you know what it is? It's like, this is like a way for me to be vengeful with the cabal. It's like, oh, because of that
Yeah.
crazy nut job down there in Costa Rica, there's an extra 100,000 multi-billionaires.
Yeah.
Yes, deal with it. You know, man. So
That's
yeah, you
awesome.
know, I want to get you into it because you know what? I know what I know. And
Hmm.
you know, this token has been around for a long. People say, don't spend more, don't invest more than you care to lose. Look, if you got positive cash flow, okay,
Hmm.
and you got an extra $1,000 or $2,000 right now to throw at XRP, or an extra $5,000 or $10,000 to throw at, you're going to become fabulously wealthy.
Hmm.
That's a fact. Now, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm an ex-pizza guy, and you probably shouldn't follow that advice. But I know one thing. Yeah, I probably know one thing. If you're willing to wait it out long
Hmm.
enough, if you're willing to wait it out long enough, and you got positive cash flow coming in, where you don't care if the RV happens tomorrow or next week or next month or even next year, it doesn't
Hmm.
matter, right?
Yeah.
Then it becomes simple, it becomes easy. So that's another thing I do. I'm consumed with bringing positive cash flow. I hear like people say, Mel, I'm in pain. Mel, I wish I had more money so I could buy more XRP. So if you're into Tesla healing technologies, which I'm sure you probably are, right?
Hmm.
This is another thing that's coming. I think it's going to go big time.
For sure.
I know that we're being stifled
Hmm.
on YouTube, but I'm a different kind of customer. I'm not an easy guy to deal with. I got another
Hmm.
plan that I'm going to roll out on these guys, and they have no idea what's about to hit them. You know what I mean? So I'm just having fun, man.
Yeah, I'm
Brother.
looking forward to it.
Yeah. Let's hit the pause button. Let's say goodbye to the audience. You guys, if you listened this far, thank you. We'll see you on the next one. This guy's great. I didn't think I was going to have this much fun with him because I didn't know enough about him. But man, did he blow my doors off. I can't wait to have him back. Thank you guys. We'll see you on the next one. Stay right there, brother.
Right back at you, Mel.